on the floor as well. But good evening, everyone. And a very warm welcome to all of you, and good morning to Leon. Thank you for getting up so early in the morning to be here with all of us. It's absolutely wonderful to see some faces that I know, some new faces, and to be here with us for this fireside chat series that we always bring every year with a view to explore the potential, the possibility, the power, the purpose of coaching. My name is Amrita Singh, and I'm the founder of Back to Source Coaching. And I have this distinct privilege of bringing Leon's work here to India. And today's theme really is, as most of you know, transformational coaching and a path to inner alchemy. And it's not about coaching just as a profession, even though coaching is the modality, but it's really more about a way of being, how we come into deeper presence with ourselves and with others and really allow for transformation to emerge. And to guide us on this conversation, we have someone really very special. Of course, some of you already know him, but it's my honor to introduce him to you. Leon VanderPol, he's the founder of the Center for Transformational Coaching, the author of this book, A Shift in Being, a book that has become, like, I think, quite a close companion for many who are walking this path. He's also, of course, the creator of the Deep Coaching Intensive, which is a program that I mentioned earlier that we've been bringing to India now in its 7th year. And, Leon has had, of course, decades of experience in bringing this work to the world. I think maybe over 2 decades now. But on a more personal note, I hold this distinct honor of calling Leon not just my friend, but also my spiritual partner, someone who has walked alongside with me on this journey with extraordinary depth and intensity. And so tonight, you're going to get to experience Leon's wisdom and presence directly, and understand from him really what it means really for coaching to become a path for inner alchemy. So I'm just going to do a very quick few housekeeping and then hand over quickly to Leon. But just keep yourself on mute, but camera on, unless you're speaking. So the space is nice and clean, quiet and clear. And it helps to get that connection. So I'll make that request once more to keep that camera on. And we'll be inviting reflections as you hear Leon share. And you can type that into the chat box, and we'll every opportunity that we can to bring voices into the session, we will definitely do that. And we'll also have some time towards the end if you have any questions to direct them directly to Leon. But most importantly, I think your presence. I was sharing earlier that today is Ganesh Chaturthi in India. And in Mumbai, which is where I'm from, which is a very big festival. I didn't think of it at that time, setting the calendar up. And then as we were approaching it closer, I said, what better way and it can't be a more auspicious day to bring Leon's wisdom and wit to all of you and have you experience it and hopefully remove all your obstacles. So over to you, Leon.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I brought my wisdom, but I forgot my wit. So if you guys can give me a moment. Good morning. I am calling in from the western side of Canada, from a small city called Kelowna, which has been my home now for a couple of years. I spent the previous 27 years in Asia. I lived in Taiwan for 24 of those, and in Thailand for a few of those as well. So it's been an interesting journey of returning to my homeland because I am Canadian by birth. I have a Taiwanese wife. I've got 2 teenage kids. And so that's just a bit of my world that's around me here where I live. And I'm really appreciative always of when people come to these kind of spaces and conversations, because this is my life's work. This is the work that I was called to do from probably a young age, even though I didn't necessarily know the form it would take. When I was younger and I was on my own deep path of exploration, moving around the world in different places, I certainly didn't know that coaching or the field of coaching was going to be that which I would land in. In fact, coaching didn't even land in the shores of Asia where I was living in Taiwan at the time until somewhere in the maybe 2005, 2006. That was the first time that it kind of got heard of as a possibility. And I had been doing some corporate training work before that. I did facilitation work. I'd been in the learning and development field for a number of years. And then this thing called coaching landed in my lap. And to be honest, long story short, I fell in love with it. There was something in the nature of two people coming together in that intimate space of conversation and exploration that started to reveal a part of our humanity that I always found was really difficult to access in the more group-oriented contexts of training and facilitation. And so I simply fell in love with coaching. And over the years, I started to go deeper into it. I was trained myself in what we call a transactional form of coaching, which is a very results-oriented, goal-oriented, kind of achievement-oriented type of coaching. Very, very quite linear. Like here I am today, and I want to go to there tomorrow, and let's get me there kind of as quickly and expediently as I can. It's often very intellectual based, question based, those kinds of things. So I call that transactional coaching, kind of contrasting that to transformational coaching, which I'll talk about more today. But I was trained in that form of coaching, but I noticed even then I was still, I was in love with coaching. I loved that space, but there was a deeper place I wanted to go with people, a much deeper place. So today, what I'd like to do with you is to share some of what that looks like, that deeper place. We're going to have people that come in today, I recognize kind of all over the map in terms of their understanding of this work. Some people have already signaled that they've read the book. So there, you're going to have more information and understanding of this work than those people who've come in today who have not read the book or who aren't really familiar with the work of transformational coaching or the work of what we call at the center, deep transformational coaching, or deep coaching for short. So we're just recognizing that because we have a fairly small group, we can actually keep this quite open. I will talk for a little bit. I want to share some things with you about the context of this work. I'll share a few misconceptions too about what transformational coaching is, or maybe a better way to put it is misconceptions about what it means to be a transformational coach and misconceptions about what it takes to be a transformational coach, just to clarify some of that. And then we'll open it up for your questions. And that makes it the fireside chat part, so that I'm not just the only one chatting, but your questions matter and just helping you flesh out your understanding of this work. Because in reality, this kind of going into the deep end with other people and really exploring the depth of their mind, the depth of their being, the kind of the edges of their existence, that work is not for everybody who comes to coaching. And it's not right to say it is for everybody. So hopefully today too, when you get a sense of this, you're able to say, yeah, that's the kind of coaching I want to be. That's the kind of way I want to relate to other human beings. Because this is deeply, deeply relational work. You have to effectively love human beings and love to really be with them, to explore their lives, and then together to explore possibilities that lie beyond what they may have ever conceived of before. And that's what I find makes this work so exciting, is what takes people into these paradigms of understanding of themselves and life that is unlike anything perhaps they've ever experienced before. And if you enjoy that, like that rings for you, like, yeah, that's what I want to do with people. I don't just want to talk about goals and objectives. I don't just want to help them lose weight or communicate better or get a promotion. Like I really want to go and look at what we call the inner operating system. That's the way that your mind has been kind of conditioned to think and perceive and understand the nature of self and reality. Like if you don't really want to go to that depth, then maybe this work isn't for you. But for those of you who are like, yeah, that's exactly it. Like I'm looking for a modality to go deep with people, then welcome to this call, because that's exactly what we're here to do today. So maybe I'll start with a bit of context. And when I say context, I mean the context of transformational work. And that begins with understanding what transformation is as a human process. So transformation is a word that we toss it around quite lightly. Like transformational coaching, transformational leadership, transforming organizations, and we just toss it around. as though everything is just naturally transforming just because, we think we're doing some change work. But that's not actually transformation. So on a personal level, I define transformation, like human transformation, as a radical restructuring of your sense of self and your purpose and place in this world. A radical restructuring of your sense of self and your purpose and place in this world. And I use that word radical restructuring quite deliberately because it's revolutionary. Transformation is not surface level change. Like, for example, if you see that you have a limiting belief and you change that limiting belief, there's change happening. Yes, there's growth happening, but that isn't necessarily transformation because transformation is, as I said, it's kind of a rewiring, a reconfiguring of that sense of self, like who I am. And therefore, when I talk about getting to know the self at this level, it becomes a journey of self-actualization, a journey of self-mastery, not a goal to be achieved. And that's the big difference between transactional work and transformational work. It's not that people don't come with goals to this. They do. They absolutely do. But the goals become the outcome of an inner process of change and transformation. They're not the thing itself that we're working towards. So you might say the goal or whatever issue that somebody brings to the table, it becomes like a doorway, just a doorway into what's really going on at a more fundamental level of mind and being. So here's the other thing about transformational work that helps just to flush out the context piece is that transformational work is very much an ontological approach. So ontology is, I guess, essentially the easiest way to say it is it's concerned with ways of being, like who we are being in this world. So transformational work is very different from transactional because the core and fundamental question that we're playing with is always, who do you choose to be? Or who do I choose to be? And say in this moment, in this situation, and even in the bigger picture in life, like who am I choosing to be? And what makes it transformational is not just the choice in that. It's what it takes to become the living embodiment of that way of being, the walking, talking, living embodiment of a certain way of being. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm working with someone who's kind of sensing that there's more to who they are, more to life, and they're really frustrated, maybe feeling stuck in their work. And they come and they'll say, well, I'm really feeling stuck in my work. It's not fulfilling me anymore. I really feel there's more to life. There's more to me. And there's this sense of just being stuck and frustrated and not going anywhere. Well, excuse me, a more transactional approach will say, well, that's a problem to be solved. Let's solve that problem of feeling stuck. And we'll try to move from A to B and solve that problem. So the transactional mind sees everything as a problem to be solved. The transformational world puts all of that aside. It doesn't mean problems don't be solved, but we don't see things like I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling limited, I'm feeling unfulfilled, I'm feeling like my life has less meaning. We don't see that as a problem. It's an opportunity for a journey into the self that's going to begin to reveal what's really going on at a deeper depth. So let's say the person says, well, what I really want to do is I want to feel that I am living really to my highest potential. I want to feel that I'm living meaningfully in this world. And I want to really be just kind of a vibrant, very peaceful, open presence to people. I'm just giving an example here. This may not be anything that you're thinking, but this is, let's say, this is something I hear quite a bit for people who are kind of on a transformational journey. I want to be, let's say, an open, vibrant person with others. I want to kind of drop my walls of protection. I want to feel more relationship with people. I want to feel that. Okay, good. So there's a sense of beingness in there. Like, who do you need to be? Well, I want to be open. What is it to be open to others? What is it to drop all your walls of pretense, all your guarding, right? All your masks, all that which we cultivate to show up in the world and say, look at me, this is who I am. Like, what does it look like to just to drop all of that and to be this open human being, this relational, open, energetic, vibrant human being? and to find meaning and fulfillment through the extension of that into the world. Like that's a huge thing, isn't it? That's much bigger than I want to lose some weight or I want to have better communication skills. I mean, this is a whole different paradigm of operating with people. But to become the walking, talking, living embodiment of openness and vibrancy, that's the transformational journey, because that requires us to look at everything within that person that stands in the way of them being just that. And that, folks, is really hard work because that takes us into our self-concept. And our self-concept is effectively our conditioned learned idea about who we are and the way that life is. And it's layered upon layered with things that we've been taught. Not necessarily that we have self-discovered, but that the world has said this is the way it is. And we've taken that on because as kids we do that, and as young adults we do that. We take all of this stuff on and we begin to live through it like rose-colored glasses. We don't even recognize we're wearing the glasses anymore. We just wear them. But in this work, we have to start to look at all of that. We have to start to look at all of those things that you have been taught about yourself and the way that life is, that core operating system, and not just make surface level change to it. Like we're not just doing an upgrade of an operating system. We're looking at the fundamental coding of the operating system and looking to rewrite that coding. That's the depth we're going to. It's not an upgrade. That's change. An upgrade is change. And we can grow and we can change and we can make all kinds of things happen in our life without ever having to look closely at the fundamental wiring of our self-concept. It's absolutely possible. In fact, the vast majority of coaching approaches will go that direction. They don't require people to really look at the core operating system in order for them to make some change and to grow. But in this deeper work, that's where we want to go. We want to begin to reveal that so that people can really see, this is why I experience my life the way I do. This is why. I see these baked in ideas and beliefs and thought patterns and emotional constructs that I've been carrying for a lifetime. I see all the pain, all the sorrow, all the trauma, all the disappointments, all the hurts that I have carried for a lifetime that I have never, ever attended to. I've just stuffed them away to get on with life. And now, if I'm going to transform into this human being that's vibrant and open and relational and in the world, I have to deal with that stuff. And man, folks, that's when things get really challenging because that stuff is sticky, it's shadowy. Some of these limiting beliefs that we carry, like I'm not good enough, I'm not loved, I'm not worthy, I need to do this to be accepted, whatever it may be, that stuff is baked into us at times. It's like in our DNA almost. It's in our cells, it's just in us. And the process of outworking that, which is really a process of healing those core fundamental wounds, that, folks, is part of the big work of transformation. And it is not easy for folks, but it takes them into that core part of themselves where they begin to simply learn how to be with that which perhaps they've never been with before. And we as coaches then are learning to create containers for this depth of exploration and possibly even for the healing work that needs to happen for people who are really ready to grow beyond those limiting structures of mind, those limiting structures of being and emotion that have kind of been trapped in for a lifetime. And that's why I say the journey of becoming is the work of transformation. And it is the journey of becoming that causes us to have to look at the operating system. That's why I said earlier, the issues people bring, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like I'm having an argument with my spouse, or I'm having an argument with my kids, or I'm feeling stuck in my work, or I can't tie my shoes today because my belly is so big. Whatever the issue is, it's a doorway to the deeper understanding of oneself. And that's why we say the issue is just, it doesn't really matter what the surface is. But what happens is those issues begin to resolve themselves over time. It's like from the shift in being, there's that term, from the shift in being that we engender through this work, new ways of thinking and therefore behaving begin to arise. Not a goal to be achieved, but the natural occurring outworking of a shift in one's internal state and one's shift in one's understanding of who they are and their purpose and their place in this world. It's a very organic process. this process of kind of awakening to the higher realities, but then doing the work clears the way for these new aspects of self to arise. Yeah. So that's the context of this work. And it's really good to understand it because that's we talk about the alchemy of it, right? This idea that transformational coaching creates kind of alchemy. It's and you can see it now, right? When we start to really look at that fundamental way of operating in this world that we carry, and we start to do the work of shining a light on it, of illuminating it, of doing deep work to reveal and attend to so much of which has never been attended to, so much of which we've just operated out of default behavior because it's what's expected of us. When we really attend to that, there's an alchemical change that happens within us. And here's what I find is even more fascinating. Like when I was on my own journey of transformation, when I was really doing this deep work for myself, I felt quite alone in it. Like it was a really lonely journey at times. I didn't I didn't feel like I had anybody who understood what I was going through. When I looked at the world around me, everybody just seemed to be getting on with things. And maybe they were experiencing what I was experiencing, but I just didn't really run into many people that I felt I could relate to in that way. So there's this kind of sense of loneliness. So I did a lot of the work on my own. It was through reading, or maybe I would attend a workshop, or I would listen to some audios or videos, whatever it was. Like it was a lot of my own inner work just by myself. And it didn't go quickly because of that. I didn't have anybody there to hold the space for me. I didn't really have a sense of someone supporting me to really look at my stuff. I kind of had to mine it for myself. And that's really hard because, folks, we all have blind zones. We know this, right? We're all these areas that we're just completely unaware of in ourselves. And it really can help to be in a space where, as we speak, other people can reflect back patterns or inquire in ways that have us open up even more deeply to truths that we've been carrying, beliefs that we've been carrying, ideas, especially false ideas or at least distorted ideas about ourselves or the world that we've been carrying to really. So what I found about transformational work is that there's something alchemical when two people come together. Well, let's say two or more. Maybe that's a better way to put it. When two or more come together with the expressed intention to create a container in which a person can explore the edges of their existence, and that container is rock solid safe. So a question for all of you to contemplate is, how trustworthy are you with other people's lives? Do other people feel in your presence that they are so absolutely safe that they will reveal the darkest, shadowiest, stickiest, most painful parts of themselves just as much as they will share their greatest aspirations, their highest dreams, their most fondest hopes, their highest ambitions? Like, are you the person for whom that another person can share that with, right? Because that's the work. That is ultimately the work, that someone will come in and say, I feel so safe with you. I feel so utterly at ease with you in your presence that I'm willing to reveal the hardest parts of me to you and to do the work with you. That's big. That's big. So then the question becomes, so who do you need to be? The transformational question, who do you need to be in order for another person to feel that depth of safety and trust with you? And if you say, well, I'm not sure that I'm that person quite yet. It's like, great. Okay, good. That's not a judgment. That's a noticing. Okay, I'm not that human being yet. And that opens the doorway right there to the journey of your own transformation, to understand, okay, so what within me needs to change at a kind of core level, so that it's not just that I can sit with another person and ask some powerful questions, which is the way of transactional coaching, right? They'll say, well, as long as you, and maybe this is a good place for me to kind of segue to the misconceptions as well about transformational work. Because one of the misconceptions is that if I have the right tools and techniques, I can do deep transformational coaching. And that's a massive misconception, because what that's saying is, if I just take a coach training program and I learn the fundamentals of coaching, which is primarily how to listen and then how to ask and inquire. So it's an inquiry-based process. If I can learn those fundamentals, I can sit with any human being, and help them make progress in their life. And on one level, that's absolutely true, because as a core modality, coaching based on the method of inquiry does wonders in the world. That's why I fell in love with it to begin with. The method of inquiry holds great power. But that doesn't mean because you're able to formulate great questions in your mind that necessarily someone is going to open the deepest parts of themselves to you. In fact, there's no guarantee of that at all. You're going to be a great thinking partner, and you can help them perhaps shift some perspectives, maybe unlock some limiting beliefs because you've got a good tool and a good technique. But it takes much more than that to be a deep transformational coach. And I've been kind of pointing to some of that depth already. So one misconception is that, if I have the right tools and techniques, off we go. All is kind of good, but that's not exactly it. And there's another misconception too that people have, and that is related to this idea that if you help someone make some change, like, okay, you've been changed in some way through my process, therefore you've transformed. You've looked at a limiting belief, you've changed that limiting belief, you've had a limiting perspective, now you have a new perspective that's much healthier, you've transformed. And again, there's that misuse of the word transformation. This idea that, well, I helped you make change in some way, therefore you've transformed. So this is why many coaches just put the word transformational coach on top of what they do. But again, that's a misconception about what transformational work entails. Because once again, it doesn't go into a depth of being. It doesn't go into the depth of our inner operating system. It stays at the surface level, kind of piecemeal change rather than that radical restructuring of our sense of self. So this is just it. If you would like to do the deeper work with people, to understand that you're working with them holistically, not just compartmentally, not just with a thought or a belief, but deep holistic reconfiguration of that, that's deep transformational work. And if that's not necessarily for you, then you're going to go off and do perhaps more transactional forms of coaching. And again, this is not right or wrong, good or bad. These are not, you have to be very careful this idea of judging different methodologies of coaching. Every coaching approach absolutely has its place in the world. Absolutely has its place in the world. There's going to be people who are right as a client for each type of coaching. And so part of our work too, and I won't talk about this today, but this is a big question, is then how do you know about the readiness for someone for deep transformational work? Like, how can you tell they're ready for the deep dive? And that there are signals of what I call signals of transformational readiness. And that's a whole nother talk for another day, but that exists, signals of readiness for the deep dive. So you're learning to listen for those signals of readiness. So there's a couple of issues there around, like I said, around just understanding what deep transformational coaching is. That when we think about the nature of change and what that really means, that adopting a new belief or a new perspective is not fundamentally transformation, but it is change. So all transformation is change, but not all change is transformation. So we just have to be really aware of that as we do this work, that, we can't conflate those terms. We really want to be here to help people do the deep work. And I guess there's one more, and maybe then I'll just pause. There's one more misconception I'd like to share with all of you, and perhaps this is the greatest one of all, the biggest misconception that people carry about what it takes and what it means to be a deep transformational coach. And it kind of comes back to a question I like to ask. It's related to that question I asked you earlier, like, who do you need to be in order for someone to feel so safe with you in your presence that they will open up the deepest part of themselves to you? Well, that's one question. And it's related to that. So the question is, what does it take to be a great transformational coach? Like, what's that number one thing that you can be about to be a great transformational coach in the way that I've been pointing to transformational work being? And the misconception again often is, I just need to get some tools and techniques. The misconception is, I, the coach, don't need to fundamentally change anything about myself to support you to do a deep dive into yourself. In other words, And I'll give you kind of an image of this. I can teach you to dive to the depth of the ocean while I stand on the shore. I'm going to teach you to dive deep dives, the depth of the ocean, by yelling instructions at you from the shore. Now, if you think about that, like there's no deep diver on the planet who would be taught by somebody who has never done deep diving and who is standing on the shore yelling instructions. Like nobody would sign up for that. But they do have this belief in coaching that if I just learn a tool or technique, I can stand in the shallow waters and yell those tools and techniques at you while you try to dive 3,000 meters down below the ocean or 300, whatever it is. And it's the same kind of thing. The misconception is that nothing fundamentally needs to change in me in order for me to be that coach. And here's what I want to shift because this is really a huge part of the deep coaching intensive and a huge part of the work that we do is we work with the axiom that to be a great transformational coach, you have to commit unwaveringly to your own transformation. In other words, you need to be one who has dived to the depth of your being so that you can support others to dive to the depth of their being. You can only truly go as far with someone as you've gone with yourself. And you might think, well, I've been doing this deep inner work. I've got a lifetime of spiritual studies behind me. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It might, but it might not, because we tend to overestimate where we are in our own journeys. We overestimate what we are really capable of doing with other human beings in this space until we're kind of confronted with it. But if you really sit with that, I can take a person only as deep as I've been with myself. And I would really like to go to the depth of the depth with people. Like I'd love to be able to touch the core essence of our humanity and support someone to touch the core essence of their humanity and grow in ways that perhaps they have never thought of, to touch their brilliance, their innate brilliance as human beings. Like that's what I want to do. It's like, yeah, have you done that for yourself? Have you sat with your innate brilliance? Have you just been in that most expansive state of beingness that you can possibly conceive of and just like own that? And have you done the hard, shadowy work of looking at all the edges of your existence and all that unattended sorrow and pain? Have you done that? It's like, yes. It's like, good, go. You are ripe and ready. If you say, no, I'm kind of dabbling in it. I've done a little bit here and there, but I haven't really committed my life to that, then again, you're only going to work with someone as far as you've taken yourself. So a big part of our work is that to be a great transformational coach, we have to commit unwaveringly to our own transformation. Now, that doesn't mean that you are fully transformed. I don't even know what that means, right? Like you're just like some enlightened being. There's no way I'm an enlightened being. Like I've done the work, but I'm not sitting here like some Buddha. Like it's not like that. I don't even know what that means. But the point is still the same, that you don't need to worry and say, well, I haven't gone very far, or I don't know if I've really done enough inner work to support other people. It's like, okay, but if you're called to it, then we do the work. Like that's it. We do the work. And as you do the work for yourself, and you'll be surprised, this alchemical nature of things, man, there's an acceleration that starts to happen when we do this work together. When we do it in a group, as a collective, when we do this one-to-one, when you have to hold space for another human being, it transforms you. It's a miracle. Like truly, if you hold space for another person to touch their magnificence or to touch their deepest pain, whatever it is, and to attend to it, it transforms you faster than you can perhaps even understand. And so this is the work that it doesn't mean that you have to be fully transformed. It means you have to be willing to commit to the journey so that you can take people, in a sense, with you and become that guide. So we're looking to create in this work, you might call them way showers or guides to the deeper realm or yeah, agents of transformation. I don't know what the word is. Like it's the sense that people will see in you, like that's a person who has gone there. And I want to go there too. They have some quality of being, some quality of presence, some quality that just makes me say, yes, that I aspire to have that within me too. And yet I just feel like I'm not there yet. So maybe if I just do some work with this person and we begin to open things up in this way. And so there's the alchemical nature of it all. As we do this work together, something accelerates. our own transformation. And as we accelerate our own transformation, we accelerate the transformation of other people. It becomes more easeful when it's done in a space in which people feel safe, relaxed, at ease, open and aware, vibrant and alive, and willing to attend to whatever they need to attend to grow into those new paradigms of possibility that really lie beyond the veil particularly of our ego and all of its wants and needs and fears. When we grow beyond that, the world changes. Absolutely. Nothing necessarily had to change in the sense of it doesn't look like it's changed. It has changed because you've changed. And you begin to feel differently about life. It becomes more meaningful, more real, more purposeful, more vibrant, more alive. Like all of these things are possibilities for yourself as coaches, but also for those that you are willing to work with. So perhaps I'll stop there, Amrita. That was quite a bit. That's like a mouthful. And we can open it up really to questions, curiosities, even about the nature of the course, the Deep Coaching Intensive. If people have questions about that, yeah, let's do the fireside chat bit. And even if you're off camera, folks, like just put your hand up, come on in, unmute. You're absolutely welcome.
Can I?
Of course, Rajiv.
Thank you, Leon. I was just wondering as I listened to you, would you say in many ways empathy comes close to what transformational coaching is? Or is there something that's very distinct and beyond empathy?
Yeah, there's definitely a level beyond empathy. Interestingly enough, Otto Scharmer, I don't know if you're familiar with Otto Scharmer's work. He wrote a book called Theory U. It's been quite significant in looking at kind of awakening systemic change in organizations. Anyway, he's got this diagram called 4 levels of listening. And I won't go into all the levels, but let's just say the upper levels are more around factual listening, kind of listening at the surface. And then the third level, interestingly, is the empathetic level. And that is the level that all good coaching, and it doesn't matter what type of coaching, all good coaching, really good coaching begins at the empathetic level. Like the ability to empathize with another human being's life and to begin to sit in a space in which they feel that empathetic state, right? You've got to have in you a desire to be in that person's life. Like that's a minimum for good coaching. But there's a fourth level, and this is really interesting. This is where we go with deep coaching work to the fourth level. He calls it generative listening. He's got another term too called presencing, but let's just call it generative listening. Generative listening drops even below empathy. So what empathy is I'm listening to your life and I'm feeling a certain way towards it, an empathetic way, a compassionate way, a caring way, whatever it may, and I can see your life. But generative listening is listening from the deepest part of myself into the deepest part of you. He calls it listening from source into source. And it drops below the emotionality and below the energy. It drops into something deeply, deeply essential. And there's a kind of, and this is what we practice in the coursework, it's a kind of an attuning to what that source sense of self is in another person. So first we have to sense it in ourselves, like where is that? And then we listen to that in another, and we start to sense things like what's alive at that level for the person, what's stirring, what's awakening, what's the yearning, what's emerging, what is that future self that is alive at that level that perhaps they may not yet be aware of, but we're tapping into it to bring it forth. And what's really fascinating for me about that level of listening is that it drops positionality. So in empathetic level, that level 3, empathetic level listening means that I'm still kind of outside you. Like I'm observing your life. And again, all good coaching is doing this. We're observing your life. Here's you, the coachee, and here's me, the coach. I'm kind of observing your life in these different ways, but I'm outside in that sense. I'm the coach, you're the client. That's still very clear. There's distinct
Would you have an
boundaries.
example? Sorry, would you have an example of what that would feel like for the coach?
So I was going to say, when we drop positionality, it's less like I'm a coach and you're the client. It's more like two people becoming one in the space, right? There's less a sense of my role as a coach. I am now listening to the deepest part of me, to listen to the deepest part of you. And together we're beginning to see what emerges at that in that space. Like as we sit with that collective beingness, what emerges, right? So again, if you're on any kind, like to give you an example, I don't have one like say with your life per se, but let's say you're on a journey to find more meaning in your life. You just want to live a more meaningful, purposeful life. You're feeling somewhat stuck. I mentioned this kind of before. But if I'm sitting with you in that space, I'm not just listening to you talk about the lack of meaning and feeling empathy for your lack of meaning. And I can say, well, I have too once experienced a lack of meaning. I understand how you feel. That's empathy. But to drop below even that and just to sense into, okay, so what's alive at that core level of your being? What's alive at a soul level? What's alive at source? It requires me to connect with that part of myself so I can sense into that with you. So it's a co-sensing journey into the deepest part of ourselves to see what wants to emerge. That kind of what Otto would say is the future self that's coming into existence now. And that's a fundamentally different way of listening and being with another human than saying, okay, I understand that you're going through a part of your life for now that feels meaningless. And let's see perhaps what we can begin to do to explore what meaning and fulfillment look like, right? Which is a question. It's more sensing, deeper sensing of what is already alive and stirring and seeking to be revealed of its own accord at a core level of being. Okay, I'll stop because I don't know if that makes sense. That may like what? That may have made no sense, but ask if it doesn't. Yeah.
I'll mull over that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, great question. So yeah, there's a depth that we have to get to with people, but it requires us being able to tap into that in ourselves. And that connects to this piece about my transformation. Enables transformation. If I have no being level awareness in myself, it's very difficult to cultivate that in another. So that's a part of the work that we do in the center. And if you've read the book, then certain practices like the sixth practice, which is attune to your client's deeper sense of self and let that lead, is pointing right to this idea of generative listening.
I have one question.
Okay,
So,
Sanjay.
yeah, so I would like to understand. I'm really curious to know that in this type of coaching, how do you help a coachee to undergo, the transformation? Because see, when I mean,
Do
the
you have,
way.
do you have 6 months? And in other words, that's the question the entire course is about. I
Okay,
got,
okay.
I can't answer that in like in a couple of minutes because that's everything. That is the biggest fundamental question is how we support people to undergo a deep transformation. Right? I'm
Why
pointing to it
this
today.
question came to
Right.
my mind, let me tell you that the way you sort of narrated the things, it appears to me that it's all about losing your own sort of personal identity and losing the separateness and sort of and then trying to sort of going deeper into the person and almost like feeling like the way that person is feeling. Is that correct? Yeah, but then in this kind of structure, how like in this type of coaching, a powerful question is not an important tool. uh, then how does one sort of kind of
Right.
help?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you've got the book because that means you're aware of the 9 practices. So the 9 practices in the book replace the idea of powerful questions, every
Oh,
single one of them. Okay. And I can be totally honest with you, Sanjay, when I'm in a coaching session, I hardly ask any powerful questions. If you heard my questions, you'd just be like, what? They're questions like, tell me more about that. Can you open that up a little bit? What does that feel like? What were you thinking there? Then what happened? Listen to those questions. Those aren't powerful questions. Those are everyday normal questions, right? But you'd be surprised then. So what is it that I'm doing? If I'm not asking powerful questions, what am I doing? And that's what the 9 practices in the book are all pointing to. Effectively, in short, I am creating a container of possibility, very similar to what and again, this metaphor is in the book, very similar to the chrysalis around a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. It's the role of the cocoon. We are the shaper of a space that is itself utterly vital. Like a caterpillar cannot transform without the chrysalis. It will not become a butterfly. It's literally impossible. Now, it doesn't quite translate to the human experience, but the reality is we are creating containers that are woven of something. And that wovenness is the fabric of being versus the driving question. And it's woven of energetic states of being, states of consciousness, human consciousness, that by the very nature of consciousness, elevate consciousness, right? So we're working with fundamentally consciousness when we talk about shifts in being. And what we're learning to do is how to be spaces of vibrant consciousness in which people can quite naturally or organically, without necessarily the need for powerful questions or tools or techniques or spreadsheets or worksheets, to begin to go into themselves and really get honest and truthful about what's going on. Perhaps even to give voice to things that they have never spoken out loud to another human being in their entire life. That is huge beyond huge. And as long as I am willing to drop the idea that whatever you're experiencing is a problem to be solved, I can create an incredible container in which all problems are solved because there's a natural organic transformation of selfhood that begins to reveal new possibilities. And then they move down the path of new possibilities, and those problems just dissolve. They quite literally dissolve. So you see, it's a very fundamentally different way of coaching than this idea that I need to show up, put on my coaching cap, and ask certain questions to drive the conversation to an outcome. And that's what we
Can
call
I
it.
ask a question?
Yes, come in. Who's there, by the
My
way?
name is Joydeep.
Ah, great. Hi.
Yeah, hi. My question is very simple. Um there is something called meditation, correct? Now, can we
Yes.
also dive deep into transformations by getting into a meditative mode ourselves?
I think on the surface level, the answer is yes, absolutely. I think if we start to unpack that a bit, there might be some caveats. And I would say one of those is it very much depends on the kind of meditation you're doing. Yeah. There are people who meditate for a lifetime and don't necessarily make progress. So, yeah, it really will depend. It really will depend. And one of the things that I like about transformational work, and we call this the dual dynamics of transformation, and this may or may not be something that meditation reveals for people, again, depending on the type of meditation they're doing. But the big piece of it is that we want to help people attend to what we call the personal gravity, which is all the ego patterns that have built up in our mind for a lifetime based on fears of the need to survive or certain expectations of the way the world is. Or as I mentioned earlier, those very distorted beliefs that I'm not good enough or I'm not lovable, or if I don't do this, then I won't be loved or I won't be successful. Like all of that stuff, we need to attend to that. All the deep unattended sorrows, traumas, disappointments, failures, all of that stuff, which we often just stuffed away and just to get on with life. We have to deal with that personal gravity. But the other side is there's an emerging selfhood, an emerging possibility of you that can be very elusive and difficult for people to tap into on their own. But there's something about that alchemical nature of a container that, and the word I'm going to use, evokes that forth from a human being who's beginning to sense that possibility. And in the best deep coaching spaces, when that person is really ready, it can become a very vibrant, very expansive, very connected understanding of themselves at a much higher level of consciousness and being and awareness. And I'm not saying meditation never takes you there, because it absolutely can, depending on the type you do. But there's something, again, just being in a space with another human being where you're doing that work together that seems to accelerate and amplify what people can experience on their own. And this is why people go to meditation classes or go to the temple or whatever to do work in collective with another. You probably all sat, in a space that maybe there's a monk or something like that, and you just, in the presence of that human being, something shifts in you. And you can feel it. It's in the energy of the space, the energy of the being. It's like, yeah, this is a healing space. There's something fundamentally good about this that enlivens me and lifts me up. It's like, that's what we're attempting to do in deep coaching. Because let's be honest, not everybody's going to the temple anymore. In North America, the church used to be central to the community's well-being. Forget that now. It's not happening. People are just becoming more and more secular. And so there's less and less of a movement towards spaces and people and being with in those more spiritual sense than ever before. So this work that we're doing is kind of like bringing forth some of those old qualities of our spiritual beingness that we are with each other and reviving them for a more modern day context. Yeah.
From your example of deep coaching and your practice of deep coaching, have you ever found or explored if there's a meeting point between deep coaching and meditative coaching?
Well, what is meditative coaching? Maybe I should ask for clarity on what that is. I
Transforming
don't know the
someone through
term.
transforming
Yeah.
someone through the meditative route.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, there might be an overlap. Again, it depends on the experience that's being cultivated. Yeah. Like, what is the experience to be? Sometimes deep coaching can feel absolutely meditative. There can be moments of deep, rich silence in the space. It can feel very spacious. It can feel very allowing, just kind of like a journey through the woods, just kind of a gentle walk through the woods. It can touch down as we close our eyes into those deeper points of selfhood. So it can feel very, very meditative in a certain sense. Yeah. So if that's what your question is, can it kind of go into that field? It's like, yeah, it definitely can. It definitely can. But there's still a coaching element to it. Yeah. So we're weaving in, perhaps you might say, the spiritual with the meditative, with the coaching, with the healing. All of that kind of comes together in one of these spaces. It's like a collection of modalities, including the psychological.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a great question. Thank you. Nelson, hi, come in.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to check. I've done some work with the landmark education.
Mm.
I was associated with them for the first 3 years. Then I've also been on staff with them. So I've done some bit of work there. My question to you was, how different is your work from the work that they do?
Well, Nelson, in all fairness, I have not had much personal experience with Landmark. So what I'm going to say, I have to be very careful saying because it's a little bit more anecdotal. I do have some experience, but some of it's quite anecdotal. So that might not be your experience with Landmark, and then it doesn't land for you. Okay. But
Got
I'll
it.
do my best. When I experienced Landmark as I did, and it was just a 1-day program, and what I experienced through people that I know who've taken Landmark is that on a content level, there's a great similarity in the senses that we are trying to reveal the inner operating system. We want people to get deeply honest and clear about what the hell's really going on inside. That piece is the same. And that's, kind of upholding that. I think where the approach difference is that what I know of Landmark, it's a little bit more like, and again, this is my interpretation, trying to crack the egg. Like whack, crack that egg, kind of break it down, and then rebuild it in a new fashion. I would say deep coaching is more like morphing the egg, if that makes sense. It's a gentle reshaping of the human being versus a crack. So this is just, kind of imagery I'm playing with here. But there's a gentleness to the deep coaching approach, a softness, a deeper allowance than I would say the Landmark approach is, which I guess it feels a little bit more like
Yeah.
hit them hard, whack them down, break them open, and then build them back up. Now tell me if I'm wrong. I'm totally okay, but that's my interpretational difference.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, because they began that way. That's how Werner was with his people. I mean, people he was working with. And that's how most of the program leaders were trained. However, of late, I think about a decade or so back, they've gone quite soft.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're still quite intrusive in that sense.
They're moving in the direction of deep coaching then. That's nice to hear. I'm really happy to hear
Right. And also a lot
that.
of people have migrated to working with the U Lab, with Otto as well.
Auto, yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
right, that's the systemic part. And
Right.
it's interesting because I'm looking at Otto's work. I'm looking at the work of Frederick Laloux and his, organizational levels of consciousness.
Right.
And in both of those works, they're both systemic nature like they're working with the idea of the collective, what the collective can do and the collective can
Right.
become.
Right.
Both of them leave unanswered the question of how we become. The
Sure.
individual becomes. So Otto says, well, you just dive down to the bottom of the U. You just do that. You just do that and connect with your
Yeah,
deepest
no
source.
access to
And
how.
then you just act from there. It's like people haven't a clue how deep they can go with themselves. We have never been taught how to dive deep. So this work is intended in the sense to say, look, Otto, we can do your work, we will, but let's help first people understand what the deep dive looks like, feels like, is experienced as, so that they can truly touch the deepest part of themselves, and then enter your work and go, right, I know what that is to be authentically me, and now I'm going to create from that place.
Got that. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a question early on in the chat box from Cindy,
Okay.
and she had a camera on so far, but she's at the airport and now can't switch it back on or the audio. So I'll just read her question out to you. It's in essence is, I think what she's asking is, how long did you take to be a transformational coach? And I think she's pointing that to your own journey and your own story.
Yeah. So I began coaching in 2005 as a student. Took a couple years to graduate from my program. I wasn't, full-time in it or anything. And then I began dabbling in coaching. As I mentioned, I was in the corporate world doing training facilitation, but it was corporate coaching, which for the most part is transactional work. And I still enjoyed it. I'm not saying I wasn't enjoying the work. It was a deep, rich learning experience being a coach in a corporate setting. But there was a part of me that wanted to go deeper and to be with people at a more essential level, because that was my own journey. I wanted people to become more honest and more open and more real. And I was having all kinds of experiences with people who were coming to me for coaching that were different than the corporate experience and were going deeper. So I began, I'd say, probably around 2011, 2012 was when I started really experimenting with people on what it looked like to go deep. And the people that were coming to me were ripe and ready. So you can see the universe was conspiring to bring me the exact perfect people to work with, to begin to experiment and play with the modality of coaching that I had not been taught before, that I didn't even know existed. I was breaking some of the so-called rules of coaching, and yet it was very much still coaching. There was no question about that. So when I opened the center in 2013, and I taught the first deep coaching intensive, 7 people came. And, I'll tell you, I was elated. It was a 10-week course back then. I was absolutely elated. Like 7 people came. I had no idea if this was going to be anything. I had just been experimenting to the point where it felt like maybe I can teach this. Like there's something here in this field of possibility. But here's what I didn't understand, and I didn't realize until in hindsight. Like in 2015, 2 or 3 years after I started the deep coaching training, the deep coaching intensive, I began to write the book. And the book writing took 3 to 4 years, on and off. I didn't publish until 2019. But I didn't realize this, that fundamentally, I needed another 2 or 3 solid years of teaching the work, coaching in the work, and practicing the work before I was able to say, I can put pen to paper and write this work. Yeah. In other words, the mastery of it took time. And it doesn't mean that what I was doing in those early days was superficial. It wasn't. There was a depth that just kept revealing itself to me. Like it just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And more understanding of what was going on in the spaces became present and real for me. And that took time to be able to understand, to integrate, and then to be able to put words to. So I would say it wasn't probably to about, 2 or 3 years later that a real sense of mastery came in, because I'd been so actively engaged with the work for so many years. So in the deep coaching intensive, it's a 6-month journey. And it doesn't mean you walk out the door absolute masters of this domain. The encouragement will be, you've got a solid understanding of this work. Now it's time to just keep practicing, because it will continue. I don't just mean practicing as a coach, but practicing within your own transformation, because it just keeps revealing more and more and more possibilities over time. Like the depth of mastery will come as your depth of self-mastery evolves or grows. Yeah. Rajiv, come in.
So, Leon, listening to you talk about what transformation coaching is and the kind of language one tends to use to say get across to a coachee. And so to go deeper, like you said, to uh, sort of question, if not uh, literally, but is the coachee willing to transform, or uh, where does he or she want to be, and how do you sort of hold space for the other person?
Yeah.
You may not be using the language literally, but I see where you're getting to with that. So, what would you describe the ideal coachee to be in your experience? Where have you seen them succeed? That's my first part of the question. And the second is, I'm a leadership coach. I coach only the corporate leaders, and they are looking, time is money. We need to do more with less.
Right.
What's this coaching conversation going to get me? ROI. So would you then say this does not apply to them, or it's not going to be very fruitful as a conversation, both for me wanting to transform myself in that journey and for them for sure, because they're paying the bills?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, as I mentioned, I worked in the corporate world, so I know exactly what you're speaking of. And to say, today I still coach leaders. In fact, that's all I coach. But I don't call it leadership coaching and I don't call it executive coaching. They just happen to be very, very successful leaders. So what's going on, right? You're right. In certain contexts, it's all contextual, isn't it, Rajiv? It's all contextual. In certain contexts, the deep approach as just an approach would not work. And we talk about this in the course, actually. We talk about where people are at in their own personal journey and the kind of coaching that seems to be most appropriate. Now, I've got this thing called the coaching continuum. And I put transactional at the one end and I put transformational and deep at the other end. And I call it a continuum because it means that depending on your context, you're going to have to be able to move up and down that continuum. Now, the thing is that most coaches get trained in half of the continuum. Meaning, if they encounter someone who is really ready for the deepest of the deep, they have no capacity to go there. In fact, and this is from my own experience, they won't even recognize that a person is ready to go there. So they're kind of limited in what they can do with people. I've always advocated for, it's better if you can coach that full continuum, the full spectrum of possibility, like you understand how to meet someone who wants a purely transactional, goal-oriented ROI, get it done now kind of approach, if you can meet them there, but at the same time, if you're able to invite them to a deeper exploration because you are confident in that space, more can actually happen with that person. And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at what happens. Like this has been my experience, is that when you show up, and this is what I find happens, fundamentally the work changes you. You show up differently in the coaching space. And not because you're doing a technique, you are fundamentally going to show up differently. And that invites people implicitly, without even any words, into going a little bit more deeply into what's really underneath some of that stuff. Like what's really motivating, what's driving, like why do I care about this? What's really going on? So there's an evocation process that happens because you are fundamentally different in that space. And I've heard this countless times. People say to me, Leon, I don't know what's going on. But every time I talk to you, we always go to such a deep place. And I always have to chuckle because for me, where we went is not that deep at all. But for them, it was deeper than they've ever gone. Right? And that's the thing. You don't have to worry about where they're at. You just have the ability to meet them where they're at and constantly just quietly invite them through the presence of your being and maybe just the way that you are with them to just something a little deeper than maybe they've gone before. And that for them might be this much, and it might be this far away from the deepest of the deep. But for them, it'll feel like, I shared something with you today, Rajiv, that I've never actually given voice to. Like, holy cow. So this is what I want to say is everything's contextual. If you just say, well, bring this to coach and this deep stuff and bring it to somebody who's not ready. Yeah, you're going to fail, right? So it's like, how do you work with it? And if you can coach the continuum, you've got the capacity to meet people where they're at, wherever they're at, and yet you're always inviting people to a deeper experience because of the nature of you in that space.
So last Thursday, a CEO concluded the meeting, and as we shook hands and we left, she told me, "I'm feeling a lot lighter, and this happens to me every time I meet you." Would that be
There you go.
considered as?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Now, all coaching can invoke a kind of lightness in people because they can come in feeling heavy about something. Maybe they're burdened or overwhelmed or indecisive. And all good coaching, even transactional coaching, if people say, well, we're going to find a way to solve this problem together, and you do, they're going to feel lighter, right? So but that is something. It's still what good coaching can do. So I don't know what specifically she's pointing to, but those are the kinds of things that people will start to be more honest and open with you because they feel they can.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that, like in corporate, people have their walls, man. They're not, just because I'm a coach, just because I ask good questions, doesn't mean they're going to reveal the real stuff to me. Yeah. But if you can create a feeling that they can, you'll be surprised where things will go. Like you'll be really surprised. And it will go off agenda. It'll go off the agenda. Like
Yes.
that's the thing. It'll go off script. Like, here's what we're supposed to be working on. It's like, you got to go over there. It's like, yeah,
Yes.
for me, that's exciting. It's like, don't tell your sponsor. Let's just go over there together, shall we? Right?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and that's happened multiple times.
Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
for that, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Amrita, I noticed some folks have been dropping off, so I want to make sure if you want to conclude, because we've gone way over our time together. If you want to conclude with anything, I can stay on for a little longer for sure, but I can understand too that we want to honor the time for people.
No, I just, of course, like always, say thank you to you, Leon, and of course for everyone who's still around here and those who showed up for your presence and your full presence. That's really, really what makes this space come alive. And what we've touched upon today is just maybe points into the direction of what the Deep Coaching Intensive program is, but it's definitely the heart of it. And which, like Leon shared, it's a 6-month journey. It's all the way in February, which seems so long ago. And yet, before you know it, we'll be there. And the reason, I share that with you, like always, you will receive an email from us with all the details about the program and the special offer that's still August. So for those of you who are here, you can still avail of it and join us in February if you feel called to. And if not, then I hope you take away something. I'm pretty sure you will tonight from this conversation.
Yeah, I'm just appreciating everyone coming. Thank you. Truly, just to be in a space and talk about these kinds of things, I think it's fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you, Amrita.
Yeah, and Karthik asked how you can get a copy of the book. I meant to mention to Leon earlier, but it's gone off Amazon currently, and many people are asking me how to get the copy
It's
of the
off Amazon.
because it's out of stock on Amazon. It's so
okay. I thought the page was down. Yeah, out of stock. It's been happening everywhere.
On Amazon. It will be back, and I do have a few copies. So if somebody does really want that copy, just drop me a message, and I will have it sent across to you.
Yeah. Amazon is the best bet for India for sure. Sorry about that. I have no control over it. I have actually contacted the publisher and what's going on and out of stock, and they're saying it's Amazon and its algorithms. Great. Can't affect that.
Yeah. Hey, hi, Amrita. Hi, Leon.
You have a question, Arjun? Then come on in.
Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, just a reflection. And reflection is something when you walk out of a room and someone says, what did you listen? What do you take back? And it connected with my practice. I'm a bhakti yoga practitioner. So this is understanding the Gita, but also understanding at the highest level what sacred love really means. And then I think it really resonated with me when you said to become one. And the idea of the collective. So in our tradition, we have something called Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. It's basically something which kind of totally resonates with the deep transformation coaching. So I practice that. I also practice that in my work. But to transition from, I'm a coach for students, high school kids mostly. I've been doing that for 28 years. And that's working fine. So adding bhakti yoga to my work with students is just a brilliant thing. For me, at least, it's really worked out well. However, if I have to transition to as a life coach for executives or adults, let's just say, there's always that there's no motivation, to be honest. Like just to create another revenue stream, it just doesn't excite me. So, and of course, I touch upon my work touches, and I have conversations with parents all the time. But if I were to shift gears and say, okay, now I want to be a coach for adults, then there is no clear path as such. And so if I do this course, what really happens next? And how do we sort of realize that, okay, I can be a coach to adults or to executives as well?
Oh, that's not the goal though, at all.
Okay.
Like it couldn't, who you coach. I mean, we do this work with people all over the world, so that makes irrelevant who you coach. You can coach youngins, you can coach the elderly, because you're learning a capacity of being and a capacity of holding space and a coaching modality as well. So there's something still unique about the way coaching approaches things that can truly be applied to any context that you wish to bring this work to. It's true on one level, the deeper readiness to really explore themselves tends to occur in people who are adults, right? Because like I look at my own 18-year-old daughter and 15-year-old son, and their brain is still half developed. Their self-awareness is kind of there, but not really. But I can still do what I do with them, but understanding that there's limits to what they can do within themselves, like what they're just desiring to do, or even sometimes just like, Dad, why do you keep asking all these questions? Like, I just want to go watch TikTok, whatever, So it's just, again, contextual, and you can do the work with anyone because your own capacity is there. And again, that just allows you to be quite flexible in how you show up in different spaces. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, that works.
But Arjun, I say to you, and I say to everyone else who comes through, whether it's through a fireside chat or a conversation with me, is yes, this is an ICF accredited course and all of that, but only do the course if you want to do it for yourself, because that's really what this work is about. It's really for you, and if that's really the mindset, and that's the invitation for people to come to this course, and practice will grow and practice will flourish and all of that will happen, but it's really an expansion of your own being.
Yeah.
What I really like was it really syncs well with the philosophy I study, and then it gives me some sort of idea that there could be interesting tools, conversations, which could lead me to be able to be a transformational coach with my students. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can guarantee you that the conversations are going to be really rich, like really rich, because we're, like I said, we're mining the deepest part of ourselves, the truest, realest, most authentic part of who we are, and we're bringing that to the surface for contemplation. This is like, it sounds like you, like me, like that's the space. That's it. Like that's where I want to be with other people, and we call it a coaching modality. Okay, great, but it's still just the journey to knowing who we are. That's really the end of it. It's the journey to know who we are. And we just want to be able to eliminate any barriers within ourselves, even in terms of confidence or feeling of self-worth or feelings of ability, like just to attend to all of that in the course too, is just to clear that out so we can stand free and clear in our work in whatever context we are wanting to show up. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With that, I think we can bring this conversation to a close.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for those who stayed on. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. Yeah. Good to meet everyone. And perhaps we will meet again in one way or another, perhaps in February, perhaps in another context. Yeah. Keep trusting your own journey. Absolutely trust your own journey in this.
Thanks so much.
You're very welcome, folks. I'll sign off.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Enjoy your nights.
Amrita.
Thank you,
Take care.
Amrita.